Outward is a doomsday prepper's wet dream, because nothing, and I mean nothing, happens without preparation. Forget your power fantasies. This is a world where forgetting your water bottle means bleeding out in a ditch, while 2 bugs juggle your corpse. Every swing of your sword burns stamina you don't have, and every meal you eat feels like you're stealing from your future self. Every step you take could be the one that ends you, because here, the world isn't waiting to kill you, it already thinks you're dead. And it's just cleaning up the mess. So here's the plan. Beat Hardcore Outward within 100 days with nothing but bad decisions, forced plans, and whatever scraps of luck I have left. Uniting 3 warring factions and saving the world from total annihilation in the process. Despite corruption burning my lungs, starvation, and enemies making me feel like I'm the loot drop, let's see how long I survive in Hardcore Outward. Like every other game, we start with character creation. The character creation screen in this game is so terrible, I just skipped through it. Thus, Gem Bloodlord was born. Maybe a subtle hint at what's to come with a lead-based twist. We wake up in a decently furnished house stocked with an iron sword, a backpack, food, and some ingredients. Stepping outside, we're immediately greeted by a mob demanding 4 months worth of missing payments and a tribal job we apparently skipped out on. Rissa, the queen, shoos them away and gives us 2 options. Hand over 150 silver or earn a tribal favor within 5 days. Grab some essentials, a lantern, water for stamina regen, and got to work. The first goals were to find and craft a better weapon and get that tribal favor. Leaving town, we got a skill from the guard called Puncture. Basically a stab, but better. And moved to the beach where we would give some stupid kid a bandage in exchange for a tribal favor. But not before I fell off a hill and almost died 5 minutes into the hardcore run. Next up, a new weapon. Feral dogs drop predator bones, which can be used to craft a fang sword. That applies bleed damage, perfect for when you want your enemies to slowly regret ever fighting you. The dogs are all over Chersonese, the area we're currently in, but a pack hang out near the hyena burrow because even animals need homes. Fighting them was rough, and much like Kenji, you're not a hero. Just some idiot trying to roll around and not die. With barely any HP and stamina left, I stumbled into the burrow, smacked the hyena, and crawled back out with enough materials to make a shiny new bleed stick. With my objectives done, why stop there? Let's go get some mana. It's rather simple to acquire. All we need to do was pick from one of 3 terrifying cave entrances, then navigate through the maze of death traps and corrupted enemies, reach the mana crystal at the center, and finally sacrifice both max HP and max stamina for a few measly points in mana and no actual spells to use it on. Finding my path through the cave wasn't as bad as I could have been. Getting 3 points in mana, giving us 60 maximum mana and losing us 15 maximum HP and stamina. The next objective was a magic sword on top of the exact same mountain, inflicting elemental damage to any foe struck by it. And I wanted it not for its power, but for the money it could be sold for. I saw a rail that looked like it led straight to the top. I figured I'd skip the entire mountain climb in its entirety. However, like most of my ideas, this was a terrible one, as I slipped off and dropped from a crisp 85 HP to 0 and blacked out. Waking up enslaved, because of course I am. Forced to work in the mines for 3 to 4 days to earn enough silver to pay off the guards. Mining iron for a random lady who gave me 2 silver per scrap, while guards stood watch, so there was no escape. After 3 days of this grind, I finally earned enough. They gave me back all my gear, including the silver I could have used to pay them up front. Rushing back to town, limping, bitter, and spiritually broken, I turned in my tribal favor before it expires, saving my home, barely. As for the guards and that lady, I will get my revenge. Someday. Maybe. Probably not, but I'm petty, and I will be probably forever. Anyway, I find out that 2 people I don't really know or really care about are leaving, and I need to talk to them, because factions exist, and they are going to different ones. After a nap and a few awkward conversations, I'm told to travel to Berg, a hidden city deep in a magical forest, and given 3 traveling rations and a pat on the back. Before I left, I stole a shield from some nearby cave. Quicksilver is Quicksilver. So lady wanted it, she didn't ask questions, I didn't either. And with that, I'm off to Berg. Totally prepared, probably cursed, and overwhelmingly confident. With a bit more agonizing walking, we made it to Berg. Our first quest was to pledge and prove ourselves to the Blue Chamber. Sounds intense and official, but in reality, all they wanted was a fang sword, something I already had in hand, so technically, I was the chosen one. We also learned all of the major leaders would be gathering in Berg, but not for another 3 days. That gives us time to commit a small economic crisis. The plan was one that involved explosions, profit, and absolutely no morals. I set off to the Cabal of Wind Temple, also known as the Corrupted Cattle House. Once there, I now played as a farmer instead of an adventurer. Not a peaceful hay bale kind of farmer, more like I wrangled cattle into a detonation chamber and then blew them up like loot pinatas. Oh yeah, and I have to do this kinda quick, because there's a green poison filling my lungs every second, slowly corrupting my body over time, and if it finishes its process, the run's probably over. And just like that, our bag is filled. Now, just a slow, tense walk back to town, hoping I don't get jumped by spirits, bandits, wolves, infected tree beings, or alpha elks that will stunlock me to hell and back. After a nap in town, it was selling time. We sold our haul and completely bought out the first vendor, walking away with over 1,200 silver. With that cash, it was time to head to Levant, the sunburned capital of the world, nestled in the desert region of Abysar, where I'd claim my first real power. The journey was hot, long, and slow, but mostly safe. The only real danger came from when I looted an ornate chest guarded by a corrupted creature. This netted us some more money, so it was worth it. Levant was a beautiful city, home of some baked streets, bustling markets and merchants, and unique goods, along with the faction of the Heroic Kingdom. But most importantly, the mercenary trainer. He would teach us to move faster and more efficiently, making sprinting cost 40% less stamina, which was great because running is kind of my specialty. Most importantly, he taught us to channel our mana to rip blood straight out of our enemies from a distance, not only healing us, but turning their blood into a bullet we could immediately fire right back at them. This transaction only cost a small 1,800 silver, leaving me a broke bloodbender. Of course, being broke presented a problem. There's a powerful pistol in town for 350 silver, and I wanted it. But wanting and affording are two very different things, and sadly, I can't use my newfound magic to take it. Exploring in this game is like asking the wilderness to kick you in the teeth. Sure, I've got mana and edgy blood magic now, but when 2 random bugs roll up, slap you with a slow, and leave you bleeding for 2 straight minutes, you realize quickly you're the loot drop. Stamina working against me as always, I bled out. Another 80% chance rolled in my favor. I wasn't dead yet, but I'm sure I would not have any more chances. Especially when I wake up in a cave full of God knows what. Not to mention, my backpack is gone and I don't know where I am. I sprinted through the dungeon, aggroing absolutely everything, and dodged like my life depended on it, because it kinda did. Found my bag and escaped, limping back to Berg with no shiny new pistol. My trusty flintlock would have to do. I spent a much longer time away than I expected, meaning our money farm was back. Everything respawns every 7 days. Thanks to my impromptu nap from bleeding out, we were right on schedule. I ran the classic cattle herding big boom operation, packing my bag full of loot and moving on to Berg, just in time for the Blue Chamber meeting on day 14. I expected some big important role. Instead, I was told to go check if people had arrived in the inn. And the moment I step out, of course there was an explosion. I guess the meeting was sabotaged, with fighting already starting on the inside. After the small fight was cleaned up, it was time for our part, to find the kidnapped queen. This area was brutal. Using proper spacing and buffs on my weapon, like the cold infusion rags, were vital to my survival. The magic bullets and a bit of cheese helped as well. In the end, we didn't find the queen, but we got a hot tip. She's imprisoned in the tower next to the burning tree. I ran straight there, kicking in the door and taking out the guards with a mix of clean slices and surgical grade flintlock shots. My reward was a thank you from the queen and 100 silver from some random prisoner. Back in Berg, they hit me with the classic, wait 3 days for the next quest. But this time they tossed me a side mission. Hunt down the 3 captains of the prison I was enslaved in for 3 days. With revenge on the plate, I'm headed back to Vendeville Fortress to settle the score. Already knowing what fresh hell awaited me in the fortress, I pre-buffed like it was an MMO raid boss, and marched in confidently like I already knew what was gonna happen. I walked straight up to the first leader, told him I was gonna kill him to his face, and shocker, that's exactly what happened. The guards throughout the fortress were speed bumps. Loot-filled speed bumps, with keys we needed to get throughout the fortress, but speed bumps all the same. I stumbled into a room that screamed trap louder than Skyrim dungeon floor plate. By some miracle or maybe sheer dumb luck, I picked the correct lever and didn't end up skewered on some spikes. Upstairs, a magic harnessing menace was next. I stared her down, hit the buffs, and sliced her open like a mana-infused deli ham. Then it was time to settle the score with the two guards who originally enslaved me. Fun fact, blood bullets are surprisingly persuasive in a one-on-one argument. The final fight was a marathon, draining most of my max HP and proving once again that I have zero self-preservation instincts, but we got the job done. Oh right, this game punishes you for playing it. Take too much damage, spend too much mana or stamina, and your maximum pools shrink until you sleep. It's like a twisted RPG version of a Souls game. Really keeps the panic alive and well. Generally, this is no problem, but when you're on the clock for a self-set challenge, this becomes a concern really fast. Another quest has been laid to rest. I limped back to town, now proudly carrying a cold and an infection that will last 2 real hours, because nothing says immersion like simulated illness. When morning hit, I strolled over to the nearest bandit camp because who doesn't love robbing robbers? Evicting the bandits wasn't too hard, though my infection bumped all stamina consumption by 15%, which turned running into a polite suggestion rather than a tactical option. Luckily, shooting bullets doesn't require cardio, and heavily armored enemies aren't exactly sprinters. Our reward for successfully dispatching the bandits was objectively trash, but trash that sells for silver. Now approaching a respectable 1800 silver, I set out to unlock my next skill tree. This meant conquering yet another cave. This cave was full of spirits. At this point, my weapon was a glorified butter knife, and blood bullets were strong, but the cooldown was long enough to read all of the Warhammer lore. Naturally, I did what any seasoned veteran would do. Ran in circles and cheesed absolutely everything. On the other side was another corrupted gas zone and a vendor. I sold my junk, hit the silver mark, then sprinted through the lung-melting air and reached the hermit's house. This guy taught me some real wizard stuff. Casting elemental boons, resisting weather, and conjuring things. Not super clear on the conjuring bit because in classic Outward fashion, the game explains absolutely nothing. Anyway, I hoofed it all the way back to Berg. Yes, I walked. No, there isn't fast travel. In Berg, the Queen gave us our next diplomatic mission. Convince the ash giants to stop stepping on every human in sight. This means we're going to the Hollowed Marsh, an unholy swamp of poison, disease, and murder-happy herbivores. Just imagine Australia. Exploring the marsh was like solving a puzzle designed by someone who actively hates joy, including small dinosaurs that have no problem two-shotting you, and entire areas designed to pump you full of poison just for you to reach a chest that has absolutely nothing inside. Eventually, I hopped in a sketchy boat to cross a poison sea and entered Monsoon. Here, I decided to upgrade and replace my trashy saber with a comedically large, brutal spear, giving me more distance to work with. Alongside my blood-fueled pistol, this sounded like a great combo. The only problem was switching back and forth between pistol and spear, because a spear was not a one-handed weapon. I also switched my armor, ditching a tanky chest piece for a lighter, more mana-focused chest piece, granting 5% mana efficiency. Funny enough, the spear had an opposite effect. It was extremely heavy and slow swinging, costing more stamina and getting me hit far more often. Eventually reaching the Ash Giants village, their leader told me to fetch a rare root from the Reptilian Lair, before they'd even consider listening to what I had to say. Reptilian Lair sounds like Dinosaur Central, which meant I was either about to become a god of dodging, combat, or running, and in the worst case, a chew toy. It was day 31. I felt like I was making good time, however, remembering the final quest gives you 60 days to finish, the good feeling quickly turned into mild panic. The lair was exactly as expected. I walked in with all my stuff, prepared to fight, saw a hellish demon walk around the corner, and I quickly ran outside, got as light as possible, and sprinted past the hell spawn, grabbed the root, and dipped. Honestly, not too hard, assuming you fully mastered the dark arts of being a coward. Returning the root and showing knowledge of the Giants' culture earned us the Giants Alliance, and a passive perk, Blood of Giants, boosting our max HP by 40, and they gave me a massive double-bladed axe that hit like a freight train. Walking all the way back to Berg again, I was told to wait another 3 days. Because, of course I was. Back to farming the corrupted cattle for cash. After, I skipped a few extra days just by sleeping to speed the quest timer along. It's now day 42, and the queen hits me with a new task. Track down some guy named Roland in the Conflux mountain. Yes, that mountain. The same cursed chunk of land where I got my mana, lost my freedom, and developed a mild trauma to glowing rocks. At the entrance, the guard greeted me with the classic,
"Yeah, you went left without a sword out. Walk straight into the rock mantis nest."
So basically, dude's probably dead. Walking in, I infused my weapon with fire, strolled into the nest, and obliterated the mantis with my new axe. Roland was curled up in a ball. I gave him a bandage and he ran off to the center of the mountain. Unlike me, Roland guzzled every drop of mana he possibly could. He's probably a wet noodle when it comes to killing him, but he has a crazy mana sword in his hand, so probably worth it. He wanted us to accompany him in getting his father's lost belongings in the Blue Sand Cave, opening only on the beach at nighttime. Naturally, when I got there, Roland was cowering in the back of the cave behind a lightning lobster. Plot armor was doing some heavy lifting here, because he's still alive. Somehow. After I killed the lobster, Roland called himself useless. He's not wrong, but I had the dignity not to say it out loud. Quest complete. However, before heading back to Berg, I took a detour for some bonus silver. Found a cozy bandit camp, cleared out all the goons, and discovered they were keeping a frost wendigo in their basement like a family pet. Being the master of morally questionable tactics, I stood behind a gate and hit it on the head as hard as I possibly could, repeatedly until it stopped moving. With more bad loot collected, it was time to go back to Berg. No 3-day wait this time. It was straight to business. Off to the Cabal Wind Temple to deal with the particularly crusty, green, corrupted horror. At first, I tried fighting it head on, like an honorable idiot. Then I remembered there's an insta-kill explosion chamber in this very temple. So I kited that gross abomination into the Doomsday box, flipped the lever, and boom. Instant mush. I'm either a tactical genius or I'm just morally bankrupt.
We did it.
You decide. Evidence in hand, I reported to Gabriella, then went to recruit Zagard Battleborn from the inn via instruction. Turns out he wasn't in a very enthusiastic mood. Someone apparently tried to assassinate him, one of the queen's people no less. Judging by the corpse on the floor, they failed spectacularly. So with Sigurd out, I dove into the necropolis solo. Gabriella meanwhile got jump scared by some raging ghosts in the necropolis. And Roland, yes, floor hugging, lobster traumatized Roland swooped in and saved her. You could practically taste the plot armor in the air. But he was also trapped behind a magic gate. To break through the magic gate, deeper in the necropolis, we had to offer greasy ferns to altars. Yes, ancient secrets were unlocked by literal weeds. The hardest part about this was my horrendous stamina management, which can be classified as a direct skill issue. With the magic ball finally dropped, Roland was just there, waiting. Dramatic as hell. Now, instead of an epic cutscene, the devs blessed us with text. Roland raised his mana blade, bathed in a violent flash of blue, and a woman's scream tore through the air as a red energy surge passed me. Roland stood, cold, silent, and empty. He completed his life's mission, protecting the ancient memories from the Red Lady. I think I missed something in the story, or I was not told something. Either way, Roland is dead. But apparently, he could have survived. If I hadn't said the wrong thing at some point. My bad. Anyway, we once again have over 1800 silver. That means it's time for us to get our last skill tree to smooth out our build and finally use our conjuring spell. This required us to travel to Harmattan, the only place in the game with the fast travel. 200 silver, 3 rations, and 3 days, boom, you're there. Upon arrival, we learn Harmattan is in full existential crisis mode. The Forge Master has declared that the city must surrender within 60 days or be destroyed. It's day 51, that means the timer is really ticking. But we should have enough time to still beat the challenge, I think. We track down the Hexmage who casually teaches us how to cure corruption and forge dark crystals for the small fee of 1800 silver, additionally obtaining a perk by the name of Bloodlust. Now we recover 5 points of max health, stamina, and mana burn whenever anything dies near us. Since we've entered the region of Harmattan, we now have access to enchantments. We're after ice particles, a relatively common drop from ice elementals. Ice elementals can spawn just about anywhere, but have a relatively rare chance. However, can more commonly be found in the destroyed test chamber. On the way, I scooped up some dream root, another ingredient for incense which we would need for enchantments. Thankfully, Dream Root is just a root on the ground. Bandits in this region got a serious glow up. Cooler outfits, meaner swings, and better weapons. But my axe still doesn't discriminate, so they're all cut down the same. The mana chamber's entrance was tucked away on the edge of the map, past the serene mana lake home of these ox things. They were no harm to me, so I returned the favor. Now inside the touch chambers, I was immediately reminded that I'm bad at planning. 0 stamina buffs, plus the place is scorching hot, making everything I do drain 50% more stamina. Naturally, I skip all the small fights and loot, fast-tracking myself straight to the harder enemies. An elevator dropped me into a deep freezer, probably where our little elemental friends would be. Instead, a fully functional golem was down there waiting to tear me apart. It smacked me around, and in a few seconds, I was on the exact same elevator, going back up to heal and come back down, fully buffed, to fight a basic enemy. Even with full buffs, my stamina issues resulted in me needing one more trip up just to get enough energy to actually kill the thing. Now that the basic enemy was down, it was time to fight the mini-boss. It was a floating ice elemental golem. Not what we were looking for, but it's still an ice elemental. Chances are, it will probably drop what we need. I buffed up fully with real confidence this time, and landed a few solid hits, taking out about 100 of its 700 HP before getting one shot. Thankfully, my plot armor persisted. I tried a few different ways of taking this thing down without risking my life before going all in again. The first idea was range spam. Shoot, dodge, retreat. In theory, this is flawless. In practice, the homing projectiles refuse to miss, and the boss slowly heals while my bullet is on a year cooldown. The second plan was to finally use my blood sigil. I dropped it dead center, used Conjure to summon a blood crystal turret, and it started lobbing hardened blood spikes at the golem. Each hit tickles the boss for 20 damage. A full cast dealing 250 damage, 500 total across both casts on one sigil. For reference, when I got one shot earlier, I had already done more than 80 damage in 2 swings. This build was great on paper, but in practice, seeing the numbers, not so good. I put on my most potent lightning buff for no reason other than more damage, and it looks cool. Then I went back down to fight the golem to the death, trying not to get one shot. I almost got one shot at the end. This is when I realized melee was far, far better than whatever this build was. The blood bullets were good, however, the rest was really, really bad. With the golem dead, we got exactly what we needed and more. Right past it was the ice elementals that I originally wanted, the weak, easy to kill ones. There was also a train that would take us to other underground locations, like the living quarters or the research laboratory. But for us, it was time to head back to Berg before we bit off more than we could chew. Because, let's be honest, plot armor got us this far, and I'm not trying to end up like Roland. Heading back to Berg cost us a few more precious days, currently sitting at day 57. Time to wrap up uniting these factions before the clock really starts breathing down our neck. Our next, and presumably our last quest, was to go to each region and diplomatically request peace from each faction. Sounds quite adventurous, but it felt like sprinting through every biome in the game with nothing but sore legs and empty content. No fights, no drama, no new sights, just me, a pair of worn out shoes, and an hour of doing absolutely nothing. Luckily, everyone agrees to stop killing each other, so we all get summoned to our final meeting in Monsoon, where God shows up. And no, that's not me being poetic. I mean, capital G, hand on the Bible, God just rolls up to talk to all the factions. The Blue Council asks for basic reparations, such as silver for destroyed buildings and a little army defunding, to avoid another war. God, being a great holy being, decided to take this opportunity to offer someone else the chance of becoming a new divine being. Of course, not me, the person that's been doing all the heavy lifting, just some random person in the room. Hell, if Roland was here, he would have probably gotten the role. Apparently, I'm still just nobody. The meeting was interrupted by an attack on the city by no other than the corrupted. Rushed by no one but myself, I walked outside, fully buffed, backpack on so I can't dodge well, 0 stamina buffs, and 75% of my max HP. You could assume I got absolutely destroyed, but I'm here to surprise you. I assisted in one kill, and then got absolutely obliterated. Luckily, plot armor still prevails. I've now hit a 33% miracle rate because I'm still alive after dying, or I guess getting knocked out 5 times, with a 20% chance of death each time. The queen throws me some pity gold and a helmet. Says she's glad I came along, basically the fantasy RPG equivalent of you tried your best. Now, on day 75, we have a janky build, no enchantments, and we're supposed to go square up against the Forge Master. We needed to somehow beat him with what we have, but we have a jumbled mess of absolute garbage, so we would just have to figure it out on the way. I headed back to the DLC area of the Antique Plateau, got new and lighter mana clothing, then beelining it to the test chambers again because, surprise, I blew up the last ice particle I had like a genius, messing up the incense recipe. Alright, that means it's enchantment time. Enchanting in this game is cool in theory. In practice, it's an arcane ritual that feels like you're microwaving a steak with a sundial. You've got an enchantment table, 4 magical pillars, and some incense or catalysts depending on what the enchantment calls for. Recipes for enchantments have north, south, east, and west on them to specify where the pillars should be placed, and C or F for close or far. Enchantment recipes are easy to find just by simply buying them in town. However, incense and catalyst recipes are hard to find as they are a complete random drop, making the wiki vital for this process. After placing the pillars in the right spots, which I definitely didn't have a problem with, I added the incense to enchant a basic iron sword with Thirsty, which did absolutely nothing. Naturally, I had questions, and naturally, no answers were provided. It turns out, with a bit of research, this wasn't a basic enchantment. The Thirsty enchantment was part of a grander plan. It's the first step in turning this sad iron toothpick into a full-blown vampiric weapon, because, you know, Bloodlord theme and all that. Now, to unlock its true power, all I needed was a small sample size of 18,000 damage with this weak sword that does 11 damage per swing. Then, and only then, I have to sacrifice it to some blood altar that's probably guarded by blood cultists in the middle of some cursed ruin that I haven't even seen. Back in town, I discovered a hidden gem, a sleeping buff on day 84. 1 hour of sleep grants me negative 15% stamina cost, which honestly should have been a go-to baseline buff since day 1. But whatever. We'll take it. Now, with 16 days left on the clock, we need a real plan to take down the Forge Master. We've got a scuffed, blood-craving vampire sword, a barely useful blood sigil, some passive buffs, and whatever's left of my sanity. Saying I was stressed was an understatement, but after some deliberate thinking, I sparked an actual plan. We're going back to the Burning Nightmare, that is, Avasar. There, buried atop a storm-charged laboratory, lies a legendary spear forged to specifically kill the corrupted. It crackles with raw lightning and is going to be the thing that lets us in this. Sadly, it's a spear, and that means it's a two-handed weapon, so we would have the same problems we had previously. We would also return to the Antique Plateau with 9 days remaining to finish the challenge. The Lightning Laboratory in its own right was a maze with elevators, secret rooms, and even secret elevator rooms. If I'm going to be honest, danger wasn't really a concern in the laboratory. After 15 minutes of killing things quite slowly and running around cluelessly, I found the way to the top. The spear was on the far side of the roof, in between me and 3 supercharged elemental golems. That never actually aggroed, so I just grabbed it, hopped down, and the mission was accomplished. This also allowed me to scrounge up enough money to buy that cannon pistol from earlier, costing 350 silver, inflicting confusion on hit. Another 3 days to travel back to the Antique Plateau, and it was time to finally finish this challenge. First up, we had to unlock all the train locations using the key from the destroyed test chambers. Done and done. The next goal was to find all 4 gemstone keys to open the main research lab door. The best idea I had was go down the list the train gave us. Location 1 was the ancient foundry, malfunctioning golems, broken down machinery, and 1 sick robot dog sword thingy. This is what I used my spear on first. I buffed up, tested out my new shiny spear, and it shredded it. Not corrupted, but it still worked. Eventually, we reached a room containing 2 hiding, barely functioning golems guarding a warehouse key we would use in the near future. Location 2 is the manufacturing facility. This is where I saw the golems actively fighting the corruption, meaning they weren't on the same side. Potentially, this was the point of them all along. Anyway, this location was just a lot of running with Gemstone key C at the end. Location 3, the mana transfer station. Way more intense. Dodging corrupted lasers, a super elemental, a corrupted horror, also whatever that thing is. I snatched the Gemstone key B and bailed. Now I know what you're thinking. You built this up to be hell, but you're just running past everything. And yeah, I was, while I could, because from this point on, the game stops letting you run. The next 3 dungeons traps you in fights with no escape, with 3 back-to-back boss fights, cluttered with plenty of mini-bosses beforehand. I went back to town one last time, restocked, filled my bag with buffs, food, and whatever else I could find, and then left with the single goal: return a hero or not return it all. The warehouse was our next location, located right outside of the main city. Flooded with corrupted warriors called Immaculates, these fights were very hard. I had to fight them very slowly, carefully, and very precise, using all the buffs and bullets that I had. Lucky for us, they dropped some very good and rare consumables, including very strong potions and buffs for our weapons. At the very bottom of the dungeon, we could pick the components and elements for a boss we were about to fight, which was a cool and unique mechanic, at least in my eyes. I picked the impact absorber, 10-ton hammers because it sounded slow, meaning easy to dodge, and corrupted vents because I need to build my corruption anyway for more dark stones and combat. With the boss set up, it was time to kill it. Naturally, I messed up my blood sigil right out the gate because extra damage would be a crime in a boss fight where I could just lose 20 hours of my life right here. From here on out, it was survival. With no escape, well-timed dodges, and finally some good stamina management, we killed the Golem, receiving the Gemstone Key A, and had one more to go before fighting the Forge Master. Our final location before that was the loading docks. You kinda know the deal by now. Small enemies, elevators, maze-like infrastructure leading to a boss. And this boss was covered in corruption. Luckily for me, it wasn't that bad, as long as it doesn't reach 100% and immediately kills me. It was time to kill yet another boss, although this one, not so robotic, very much corrupted. With the last boss laid to rest, Gemstone Key D was ours, and now all we needed to do was kill the Forge Master to stop the Doomsday event. I unlocked the research lab and the Forge Master gave me one last warning to turn back. I didn't come this far just to stop now. The final climb was brutal. Powerful enemies, locked levers, everything trying to stop me. However, maybe I should be a bit more honest with you all. This video took so long because I wanted to prove something. Not to you, but to me. That I could do this better. That even if the game over and over tried to remind me that I'm just some guy, I could become the main character. So I remade the build, streamlined everything, did it faster, stronger, and better. And all to prove it wasn't just luck. And of course, I had plot armor in my first run, but it was there for a reason, because I am the main character of this story. But nothing is proven if the Forge Master remains. So, the only thing to do now is to end this. Not in one, but in both timelines. surprisingly, not as painstakingly stressful as I expected. Maybe I was just that overprepared, and the changes to my gear actually turned out decent. After all, I was rewarded a set of armor that I would never use and was incredibly heavy, finally killing the Forge Master on day 94. The research laboratory exit dropped me off in the headmaster's office, which was quite suspicious, but I assume he was just keeping them locked away. I expected confetti, a party, maybe the finest wine in the city. Instead, I got the leader of the city brushing me off. He said he was busy, and when I told him I killed the Lich and saved the city, he said he already knew. He apparently felt the mana shift in the air. Then he pitied the Lich, said his intentions were noble, even if corrupted. The robots were meant to help, he just fell to the wrong ideas. Then he threw 500 silver at me and 1 of each particle to make some incense, and confidently said, "You earned this." I walked away remembering all the pain, stress, and agony I was put through to save this city. So I turned around, looked him in the face, took a deep breath, and that's when I pulled out my gun and... Oh yeah, and I ended the other run on day 70, 24 days earlier. Remember to like, sub, and comment. Please share the video, and as always, huge thanks to everybody that's watched it this far. And as for news, I have a second channel in the works with similar content with more of a review-like style. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next video, and hopefully on the second channel.